Cropping your images is perhaps the fastest way to improve the quality of an image for a teaching and learning asset. Cropping is simply the process of trimming a picture down to an appropriate aspect ratio and then recompositing the shot to better meet your needs. So always begin by first thinking about how you'll use this image. I'm going to crop this image down to fit a widescreen slide deck for a presentation. And with this goal in mind, grab your crop tool here from your toolbar or press the C key on your keyboard to call it up. Then, in the Options bar, click the first drop-down menu to select your target aspect ratio. Now, there are a lot of options here to choose from, but they're cleanly divided into 4 separate groups. The top group are the generic settings for creating custom crop ratios and for cropping to a specific width and height pixel dimension at a particular resolution. Selecting one of those options, you're able to dial in your specific width and height and resolution settings here in these fields. Next is a grouping of common aspect ratios, and then a grouping for common width and height at a specific resolution options. Now, the 4th grouping is hidden initially, and it's your own custom presets. You would first use the new crop preset option here to create a new preset. I'll create one called Unconstrained and then click OK. When we go back to the menu, you can see we have a new group for your custom presets. And since this image is going to go into a slide deck, I'll select the 16:9 aspect ratio here. The width and height dimensions are automatically filled in for us. Next, you need to focus on your composition. Use the Overlay drop-down here to select a set of compositional guides. Now, the idea here is to choose a guide that is going to help you tell your story, then adjust the crop and the position of the image so that various objects align with key points in the guides that you've selected. I'll go back to the rule of third guides here and then adjust my image so that the bowsprit tends to line up with this top alignment guide. Then I'll reposition and adjust the crop so that this lower line is crossing at the intersection of the lower and the left guide, and then adjust slightly so that the top part of the line is going out near this top third. And that can bring the text of the nameplate for the boat so that it aligns with the lower right guide. And for even more control, you can also rotate and straighten your image at the same time that you're cropping it by moving your mouse outside of the cropped area until your cursor turns into this double-headed hooked arrow. You can then click and drag, and your alignment guides will switch over to a grid view. Now as you drag, you can align objects in your grid, such as your horizon, to specific grid lines. Then release the mouse to accept the rotation. Now, Photoshop can retain the area of your image that's outside of the crop boundary if you uncheck this icon here. This will make your Photoshop files quite a bit larger since those pixels are going to be retained inside of the file, but it will give you the option of adjusting your crop later, so I'd suggest leaving this option unchecked all the time. The next icon here is for Content-Aware Fill, and this thing is simply amazing. Click on the icon to highlight it, then adjust your crop. Now, if you have areas of your image where your cropped area is going into the checkerboard pattern, which means you're outside of the original image, that's okay. When you hit Enter or Return on your keyboard to accept the crop, Photoshop will automatically fill those pixels in from other areas of your image using its content-aware filter. Now, this may not work for all images and all crops, but in this example, it looks like Photoshop did a really good job of filling in these areas for us. Your image is now cropped to the proper aspect ratio for your teaching and learning asset, and you've recomposed your image to have a more pleasing composition that better supports your story.